My name is Lena Mercer, and if you saw me now, you would probably think my life has always made sense. I'm 31. I own a successful chain of home decor stores across Southern California, and people online love to call me proof that hard work can overcome anything. They say it like struggle is romantic once it is wrapped in clean lighting and a good headline. But there is nothing romantic about being the child nobody chose. The day my family came back into my life, I was in the stockroom of my flagship store reviewing invoices and shipment delays. I was halfway through answering when my phone lit up with a number I did not know, but something in me recognized it anyway. I declined the call. It rang twice more. I put the phone face down on a box of glass candle holders and kept talking about inventory like my hands were not beginning to shake. When the buzzing finally stopped, I looked down and saw 5 missed calls and a voicemail. I did not listen right away. I already knew the past had found me. People do not disappear for 20 years and come back with good intentions. They come back because something in your life now looks useful. Before I tell you who called and why I let the silence stretch until it hurt them, you need to understand what happened the first time they left. We lived in Mesa, Arizona, in a beige house with sun-faded shutters, a patchy front lawn, and a kitchen that always smelled faintly like coffee and bleach. My mother, Carla, worked reception at a dentist's office. My father, Scott, drove delivery trucks. My older brother, Evan, was quiet and helpful. My little sister, Mia, was bright and loud and always sticky from something sweet. That certainty started cracking when my father lost his job after his company cut roots. He said it was temporary. Then he said he was interviewing. Then he stopped talking about work at all. My mother started taking double shifts. Their arguments moved from whispers behind closed doors to sharp voices that ricocheted down the hallway. Bills stacked up on the kitchen counter. My brother got quieter. My sister got clingier. I got observant. When adults insist everything is fine, children learn to study tone instead of words. They used gentle voices, careful faces, rehearsed sentences. They said none of it was our fault. They said both of them loved us. They said families could change and still be families. Then the practical conversation started slipping through the cracks. Where would everyone live? Which school zones would work? What rent could be managed? My mother said Evan should come with her because he was calm and could adjust easily. My father said Mia needed him because she was so attached. Nobody said my name first. That was the moment something cold entered me. It was not loud. It was not dramatic. It was just the sudden knowledge that I was not at the center of anyone's plan. Later that night, I stood in the hallway outside their bedroom and heard the sentence that split my life in half. My mother said, "What about Lena?" My father answered, "I can barely handle one kid right now." Then my mother said, "Maybe the children's home can keep her for a little while until things settle." Keep her. Not help her. Not protect her. Keep her. Like I was something to be stored while they rearranged the lives they actually wanted. 2 days later, my mother shoved clothes into a duffel bag without folding them. My father drove me across town to St. Agnes Home for Children. Nobody used the word abandonment. They called it temporary. They called it a few weeks. They called it the best option. Adults are experts at renaming cruelty when the truth makes them feel ashamed. I still remember the front office. It smelled like lemon cleaner and stale air conditioning. There was a metal desk, a faded poster about hope, and a woman with a tired smile who took my bag and asked me if I liked coloring books. My mother crouched in front of me and fixed the collar of my shirt even though nothing was wrong with it. My father signed forms without really looking at me. I kept waiting for one of them to suddenly stop the whole thing, to say this had gone far enough, to take me back to the car. Instead, my mother kissed my forehead and said, "Just be good for a little while." My father said, "We'll be back before you know it." Then they stood up and walked out. They did not turn around. They did not wave. They did not come back that night or the next week or the week after that. The first night, I slept on a narrow bed under a thin blanket and kept my shoes on because I thought maybe they would return late and I would need to be ready. For the first few days, I sat near the lobby window whenever they let us into the common room. Every time a car pulled into the parking lot, my whole body leaned forward. I made excuses for them. Traffic, work, paperwork, grown-up problems. A social worker named Ms. Riley told me my parents were trying to get stable. She said I was safe there. Safe was such a small word compared to wanted. By the second week, Even the staff stopped asking when my family was coming back and started saying if they made contact. There is a huge difference between when and if. One keeps a child alive. The other teaches her to expect nothing. I learned the routines quickly because routines hurt less than hope. Wake up early. Make the bed tight. Eat fast. Keep your head down. Do not cry where the older girls can see it. Do not ask for extra. Do not act new. At a place like that, the children who had been there longest could smell fresh hope on you, and they hated it because they knew what comes after it. A girl named Tori asked me on my 4th day whether my parents said they were coming back. I nodded. She shrugged and said, "They all say that." Then she walked away. I stopped sitting by the window after that, but I still listened for footsteps. I still watched the office door every time it opened. Ms. Riley called both of my parents. She left messages. She mailed forms. She told me they were working through a difficult time. Later, I learned they had settled into their new lives almost immediately. My mother rented a small apartment and took Evan with her. My father moved in with a friend and kept Mia with him. In other words, they had each managed to make room for one child. I was the only one who became too inconvenient to carry. That truth did not arrive all at once. It came in pieces. No birthday call on my 9th birthday. No Christmas visit. No letters. No relatives asking questions. Just paperwork, polite words, and adults using phrases like delayed response and temporary extension while my life hardened around the fact that no one was coming. What hurt most was not the rules or the bland food or even the fear. It was being erased while my siblings remained part of the family story. They had homes. They had routines. They had school lunches packed by someone. They had pictures taken on birthdays. I was the page everyone tore out. A child can survive hunger, noise, and loneliness. What changes her permanently is learning that when the adult she trusted had to make hard choices, she was the easiest thing to remove. After nearly a year, I was moved into foster care. If you have never been in a children's home, you might imagine foster placement as rescue. I did too. I imagined a porch light, warm food, someone remembering my favorite cereal. What I got was a series of homes that taught me how many different forms temporary can take. One house kept my belongings in garbage bags for months. Another had so many children nobody remembered which shoes were mine. One foster mother smiled in public and whispered private poison with perfect lipstick and church manners. One foster family made me volunteer Saturdays at a church-run donation center because they believed idle kids became trouble. At the back of that center was a little room where furniture donations were repaired, painted, and resold to families moving into low-income housing. The man who ran it was named Arthur Bell. He was in his 60s, broad-shouldered, patient, and always carrying a pencil behind one A. The first time he saw me staring at a scarred wooden table, he handed me sandpaper and said, "Start with the edges. Splinters hide there." I had never built or restored anything before, but that table responded to my hands. If I sanded too hard, it showed me. If I paid attention, it smoothed. If I stayed long enough, something ugly could become useful again. Arthur taught me how to strip old paint, stain wood, reupholster dining chairs, and judge whether a piece had good bones under the damage. He never pitied me. He corrected me when I rushed. He praised the work, not the wound. There is a huge difference between being cared for and being consoled. At school, a guidance counselor named Denise Harper noticed I stayed late helping reset classrooms for events and asked why I liked arranging furniture so much. I told her I like spaces that made sense. She said, "No, you like spaces that feel safe." That sentence stayed with me because it was the first time an adult described me in a way that had nothing to do with being abandoned. Denise helped me get into a vocational design and carpentry track. Arthur let me use the workshop after hours when he trusted me with the tools. I aged out of the system at 18 with one duffel bag, a box of notebooks, and more paperwork than guidance. I moved to San Diego because Denise knew someone renting a room cheaply in a house near City College. During the day, I took classes in interior merchandising and small business management. At night, I worked at a furniture warehouse tagging inventory, sweeping floors, and learning what sold, what sat, and what made customers spend more than they planned. I was exhausted all the time, but exhaustion felt better than helplessness. I started refinishing small pieces on weekends and selling them online. A pair of nightstands, a coffee table, a vintage dresser painted deep green with brass hardware. Then came custom room styling for people who wanted their apartments to look expensive without actually being expensive. I had a gift for that. Maybe because I understood the emotional side of a room. I knew what a lonely person buys. I knew what a newly divorced woman wants a bedroom to feel like. I knew why lighting matters when you have spent years afraid of the dark. The first person who really believed in my business was my friend Nora, a photographer with loud earrings and no patience for self-doubt disguised as practicality. She rented a booth at a maker's market near Little Italy and talked me into displaying my restored furniture there. I told her nobody would pay real money for my work. She told me I had the annoying habit of undervaluing anything that came from my own hands. She was right. By the end of that month, I had sold out 3 weekends in a row. A year later, I met Caleb Ross. He came to the market looking for a desk lamp and left with a hand-restored sideboard and my number written on the back of a receipt because he said anyone who could make old wood look alive again probably had good taste in coffee. I should have rolled my eyes. Instead, I laughed. Caleb was an architect who loved quiet mornings, brutal honesty, and asking questions that were interested rather than invasive. He never pushed me to tell my story before I was ready. Trust came slowly with him, which meant it came honestly. Nora helped me think bigger. Caleb helped me think structurally. Arthur kept reminding me not to let style outrun substance. Somewhere in the middle of all that, I launched my first tiny showroom under a name that felt true the second it arrived in my mind. Hearth returned. Because some people are born inside warmth, and others have to build their own way back to it. The space was narrow, expensive, imperfect, and mine. I sold restored furniture, affordable styling bundles, throw blankets, lamps, ceramics, and small pieces that made ordinary apartments feel less temporary. That word mattered to me more than customers knew. Nothing in my childhood had felt permanent. I wanted to create rooms that told people, you are allowed to settle here. You are allowed to stay. My first year was brutal. I handled payroll, shipping, customer service, repairs, and social media while eating granola bars for dinner and pretending panic was just ambition wearing boots. But the business grew. People came back. Then they brought friends. Then a local magazine featured my showroom and called my style elevated comfort for people rebuilding from life. I cried in the storage closet when I read that because I had no idea how literal those words were. By 29, Hearth Returned had expanded into 6 stores across Southern California. We hired young adults aging out of foster care through a paid training program because I knew what it means to step into adulthood with talent but no network. Then came the interview that changed everything. It was supposed to be a simple local segment about women-owned businesses and community impact. Near the end, the host asked where my commitment to helping former foster youth came from. Maybe I was tired. Maybe I was finally done protecting people who never protected me. So I told the truth. Not every detail, but enough. I said I had been left in institutional care at 8 while my parents each took another child and built separate lives. I said abandonment shaped everything I built after. The clip spread fast. A larger account reposted it. A newspaper ran a longer feature 2 days later with photos of my stores, numbers from the business, and a headline about the girl nobody kept who built homes for thousands. I stayed at that headline longer than I expected. Not because it embarrassed me, because it felt precise. 3 days later, the calls started. First 1, then 3, then 6. Unknown numbers, voicemails, texts. My body recognized the danger before my mind was ready to name it. The first voicemail was from my brother. Evan's voice was deeper, rougher, uncertain. He said, "Lena, it's me. I know this is a shock. Please call back. There's a lot you don't know." I sat very still after it ended. The second voicemail was from Mia, crying before she finished saying my name. Then came my mother. Then my father. Then more texts than I could count. "We need to talk. Please hear us out. It was complicated. Your father is sick. Your mother has never stopped thinking about you. We've wanted to find you." That last lie almost made me laugh. People who want to find you do not wait until your story trends online. I let every call go unanswered. Then I sent the numbers to Nora, who has the investigative instincts of a detective hiding inside a creative director's body. She did not do anything illegal. She just knows how to read public records, connect social media trails, and notice what people reveal when they think nobody important is watching. Within days, the timing made perfect sense in the ugliest way. My mother had divorced her second husband after years of money problems. My father had serious health issues and was living alone outside Phoenix. Evan had lost his job after an ethics complaint at work. Mia, according to Nora, had pulled away from both parents after learning pieces of the truth over the years. In other words, life had cornered all of them. And suddenly, the daughter they abandoned looked less like a shameful memory and more like a possible shelter. Success does not just attract admiration. It attracts people looking for a landing place. They arrived together on a Thursday just after 7. I watched them through the front windows before I unlocked the door. For one strange second, they looked like an ordinary family waiting outside a shop at dusk. Then memory corrected the picture. My father looked smaller, as if years had worn him inward. My mother kept twisting the strap of her purse with the same nervous hands I remembered. Evan stood too straight, rehearsed and ashamed. Mia looked at me like someone approaching a grave she had searched for too late. I let them in. Nobody tried to hug me, which was smart. We sat around the long table where customers usually spread fabric swatches and drink complimentary coffee while deciding how they want their homes to feel. For a minute, no one spoke. Then my mother whispered that I looked beautiful. It was such a useless sentence in that room that I almost laughed. Instead, I told them to start talking. Evan went first. He said there were things I never understood as a child. He said everyone had regrets. He said life back then had been complicated. My father said he had been drowning, ashamed, drinking too much, unable to think straight. My mother said she believed temporary care would keep me safe until she could stabilize. Mia said she had been lied to for years, told I was with friends, then told the system had made contact impossible. I let them all talk. I let them smooth the sharpest edges of the story until it almost sounded like a tragedy nobody had chosen. Then I stood up, walked to the cabinet behind the counter, and brought back 4 folders. Inside were copies of placement records, intake forms, caseworker notes, school transfer papers, and a birthday document listing no emergency contact at all. I placed one folder in front of each of them. My hands were steady. My voice was steadier. I said, "You keep using words like hard and complicated, so let me make this simple. You did not lose me. You left me." Nobody moved. I told them about waiting by the lobby window, about the foster house where my clothes stayed in garbage bags, about the woman who told me maybe I was hard to love. I told them about rationing food, switching schools, waking from nightmares with my jaw clenched so hard my teeth hurt. I told them about apologizing for existing well into adulthood because somewhere along the way I learned that needing anything was dangerous. My mother started crying halfway through. My father stared at the papers like they might rearrange themselves if he blinked hard enough. Evan covered his mouth. Mia cried openly. I did not stop. Their tears had arrived 20 years late, and I had waited too long to let them interrupt the truth. Then I told them about Arthur, about Denise, about Nora and Caleb, about the people who had no blood tie to me and still chose to invest time, honesty, discipline, and love. I wanted my family to understand the ugliest part of what they had done. They were not sitting across from a broken child who had survived by accident. They were sitting across from a woman rebuilt by strangers who had no obligation to stay but stayed anyway. That was the indictment. Strangers had shown me more loyalty than family ever did. When I finished, silence settled over the room. Then my father said the thing he clearly believed would matter most. He said he was sick and did not have much time and wanted to make things right before it was too late. My mother reached toward me, stopped, and started crying harder. Evan admitted he hoped maybe I could help their father get better care, maybe help the family through a hard stretch, maybe help him get back on his feet while he looked for work. There it was, the real reason beneath all the regret. They had not come because love finally outran shame. They had come because my life looked sturdy enough to hold their weight. I looked at each of them in turn and said the most honest thing I have ever said to my family. I did not build this life so the people who abandoned me could return and use it as a safety net. My mother flinched. My father looked down. Evan closed his eyes. Mia whispered that she was not asking for money, only a chance to know me. I believed her more than the others. She had been younger. She had been lied to. So I told her maybe, slowly, carefully, over time, there could be room for conversation between just the two of us. Honest conversation. No rewriting. No pressure. She nodded through tears. Then I turned back to the others. I told my mother that thinking about me while doing nothing was not motherhood. I told my father that a late apology was still late. I told Evan that being a child explained his silence then, but being an adult for years did not explain it now. I set my boundaries clearly. I would not give them money. I would not fund medical care. I would not perform a healing reunion for anyone's conscience. If any future contact happened, it would happen in writing first and only if the truth stayed intact. Then I told them the one thing they could do if they wanted to carry the weight honestly. Tell the truth. Tell every relative, every family friend, every person who still believes the cleaner version exactly what happened. Stop calling it confusion. Stop calling it temporary. Say it correctly. You left your daughter behind. They stayed maybe 15 more minutes. Nobody touched the coffee I offered automatically because habit is strange even in moments like that. When they finally left, I locked the door and stood alone in the quiet showroom surrounded by lamps casting warm pools of light across rugs I had chosen myself. Caleb arrived not long after because Nora had texted him when the meeting started. He did not ask whether it went well. He just opened his arms, and I stepped into them like someone finally allowed to stop holding every wall up alone. These days, a portion of every quarterly profit from half return funds housing support, job training, and furnished first apartments for young adults aging out of foster care. I started that program because no child should have to become exceptional just to survive what adults failed to do. Children remember who stayed. They remember who made excuses. They remember who protected them and who protected their own comfort instead. When those children grow up, they deserve the right to set boundaries without being called bitter. I have forgiven parts of my past, mostly because I did not want to keep swallowing poison every time I remembered my family's names. But forgiveness is not the same as access. Understanding is not the same as reunion. Compassion is not a key to my front door. The little girl they left in that lobby still lives inside me. I do not silence her anymore. I listen to her. I protect her. And I built a life big enough that she never has to sit by another window waiting for footsteps that never come.